What's up? Welcome to a very special episode of Convos in the Pedicab with District 6 City Councilwoman Mackenzie Kelly. This episode is so special that we're not even on a pedicab right now due to inclement weather and the humidity fogging up the camera lens. So we're actually here inside City Hall with the only City Council member who's actually bothered to show up to City Hall.
There are other council members here. I just started the trend. I'm the cool kid.
You are the cool kid. You're the new kid on the block and also the cool kid on the block. You are a trailblazer. It's beautiful.
Yes.
I'm just glad that not only that you're on this podcast, but I'm glad that you're my friend, Mackenzie, and it really means a lot. You know.
Bros before hoes.
That's right. So why are you here today?
Well, at work.
I know, but is there anything specific or special going on?
Oh, today is budget day. We are getting the budget presentation today from the city manager at 2:00 out at Community First Village.
Nice. So what do you guys what are you going to see? What do you expect to see, and what do you think we could improve upon?
Well, I definitely think there's a lot that we can improve upon at the city, especially when it comes to the efficiency and effectiveness of how we're spending the taxpayer dollars. I have always said and always will tell people that as a elected official, I have to be a good steward of taxpayer money. And that's what today is all about, making sure that we're doing the right things with the right dollars.
I agree. And I think that one of the things that kind of got me concerned and a lot of other people concerned is the fact that they're trying to spend, like $100 million of the American Rescue Plan on like homelessness.
Yes.
And this is not like an anti-homeless statement. I think we should be doing more to help people experiencing homelessness so that they don't have to stay on the street. But when you're throwing that much money into something like this, when you had a year of lockdowns, or not even lockdowns here in Texas because we've been okay, thankfully, but you've had a year of restrictions for small businesses. And they were caused by the mayor specifically issuing those restrictions.
Well, that's his job as the elected official of the city.
Right, but he was doing that, right? And so you would think that you would maybe put that money towards giving – you'd want to maybe give that money back to those businesses who couldn't fully operate when their taxes are getting raised through the roof because of this Project Connect stuff, which there's another story about that. Maybe you could talk to me about what's happening with Project Connect. And
I'm the vice chair of the Mobility Committee.
So we'll talk about that. But I think just the way in which that money's being used is just – it's not healing the city. It's just making us fight more.
It would make me very pleasantly happy to see that we give some money in this budget to the live music fund. I think that would be an appropriate use of that. We need to start bringing back the live music here and the entertainment. We have so many talented musicians and people who work in the service industry that need to be compensated. That would be a great thing to see.
I think so. Hopefully you could say something about that when they do the meeting and just bring that up and see if there's any money aside, or maybe because I don't mind spending money on homelessness, right? But $100 million is a lot of money, right? Maybe take $20 million of those $100 million and just be like, hey, let's put that to small businesses. Let's give that to our service industry.
I do think the amount is very large.
Very large.
And my biggest concern is, are we spending it efficiently and effectively? So
yeah,
we'll see.
I hope that gets brought up.
Yes.
I really do. But what's the deal with this Project Connect stuff? So there's apparently some federal issue or funding issue or something that I read on KUT or that I saw some articles. If you want to clarify that.
So basically, the way I understand it, and the way I understood it when I voted no on Project Connect because it was on the ballot, is that the federal government needs to match dollars through grant funding in order for us to get to fully fund the project. And so because we're still kind of in limbo about whether or not the federal government's going to come in and help, it might not happen.
So then what does that mean for you paying taxes? Are we still going to have to pay those? Is there still going to be a tax increase when that project doesn't get built? So
we're still looking into what effect that might have, or if we might even be taxed more to make up the difference. We don't know right now. There's a lot of unknowns.
So how are you going to be, so here's a question though, right? How are you going to be taxed more if the project isn't even being able to get made?
There's so many unknowns. I have no idea.
Because I don't know. That's something I would raise some questions about that, right?
Definitely.
When people are in the budget and having these meetings and talking about this, I would definitely want to ask, all right, well, we got an affordability crisis, and it's getting very bad. It's getting very serious.
Of course.
And I started really paying attention to how bad it was when I actually ran for mayor. Say what you want about the campaign, but I started understanding
build the
dome. When they voted no on Prop J, and there was this whole thing about Code Next. I kind of knew after the election was over, and I saw who got elected, that I'm not gonna be able to be in Austin unless I get like super money focused, and
Right.
so it changed like how I started seeing the city and started like approaching my own life because of that. So
Well, and what a lot of people don't always understand or realize is that there is a connection between affordability and homelessness, right? If people are driven out of their homes and they have no other options that they can afford, then they become homeless.
yeah, but there's also a correlation between rampant homelessness and an unaffordable living situation, because when you flood the city with homelessness, you have to tax people an arm and a leg, or it's an excuse to do that, in order to help finance these programs which help the homeless people. But if the money's not being spent properly, then you just create more homeless, and then more money has to go into this. And then when people get taxed out of oblivion, it's harder to start a small business. Yeah. It's harder to create something, and people's taxes go through the roof, and then your rent goes through the roof as a result of it. So it's a two-sided coin that you got to balance,
Right, and that's your job as an elected official.
Yeah, and I think you're doing good. I think you're doing good about the Candlewood Suites, about telling people, protesting that, right?
Right. So a lot of people don't understand, just because I'm not talking about the Candlewood Suites doesn't mean that I'm not working behind the scenes to try and continue to persuade my colleagues not to move forward. There's so many things that we do that we don't always vocalize, but it's for the betterment of the program or the project, because a lot of things happen. And if I want this deal to not go through and I want to work with my colleagues on it, I can't always publicly do that.
No, I understand. I think that like you got to do supportive housing. You got it, right. Like you can't just like imprison a population. Like I think that's a stupid idea. But you also can't build these supportive housing units without input from the community.
Right.
You can't do that. Like it's not
It's
fair.
about the process.
It's not fair to the people that live in that area that are paying taxes, that are like that are seeing their rent go up or 33% or whatever it is over like a 3 to 5 year period. It's probably like even more than that. And then all of a sudden you're paying more money to see a bunch of homeless people when there's no accountability. And then you have an understaffed police department and a district attorney that doesn't want to prosecute people. Like you could see how that's going to get people really angry.
And we're not even into the hottest part of the summer yet, when more violent crimes tend to happen.
Yeah. It's true.
But back to the Candlewood real quick.
Okay.
I just want to make it clear, even if it doesn't work out and we find an alternative, it will be in District 6. I'm dedicated to making sure that we do have permanent supportive housing. It just has to be the right location and the right timeline of public input.
And also you got to make it. You got to do it in a way that the community benefits from it, right? Like if you're going to build a permanent supportive housing area, then you got to make it so that the people in the schools, like the high school kids, can get some like extra credit or something like that for volunteering. You know what I mean?
That's
like
an interesting
you gotta,
idea.
Right? Like you got to figure out a way, like offer people a tax, like a big tax. Like if you're a resident, if you're a homeowner, you got to offer like a big tax break for everyone who lives within a certain distance of that homeless shelter.
I'm not sure that is.
Yeah, I mean, because you're like the quality of life when you see a homeless shelter, right, pop up in your neighborhood, even though like
it's not a shelter, it's permanent supportive housing,
but
so that has social services on site to help lift these people out of their situation.
And I agree with you, and I think that's important and it's good.
Just stop calling it a shelter, because that's one of the biggest misinformation. Everybody thinks it's like going to be like the Arch, and it's not.
It's okay.
So it's literal like apartments for these individuals.
But that's okay. Well, that's cool.
Yeah.
I still think that like a small tax break would be something that could galvanize the community to like want to be more inclined to support that.
Right.
That's what I think.
And
I think that like extra credit, like if you're like the high school kids in that area should get like some kind of like volunteer credit or whatever it is to help volunteer there, right? Or if you get sent to ALC for something kind of stupid like
ALC?
Like the Alternative Learning Center, because I used to sub in AISD, right? If you get sent there because you
why don't you do that anymore?
Long story.
Okay.
It's a long story. And I actually might want to reapply and do it now.
Are you eligible?
I think so.
Okay.
I mean, I got a buddy of mine who's like who works in the office now.
Oh.
And I might want to do it now with all the CRT stuff and see what just to get an inside scoop of like what they're actually teaching the kids.
That
and what's
would
happening.
be interesting.
Just see like what the true narrative is, because you see both sides. There's always a middle ground. Just see what's actually going on.
But if you're subbing and you're not there all the time, then how would you know what?
Oh, you know.
Okay.
Oh, you'll know, because you'll know. You'll go enough. You'll know. I have friends who work in the district. You know.
Back to the budget.
Sorry, back to the budget.
No, that's cool. I'm really excited about advocating on behalf of the police department to get them the officers that they need, and the cadet training academy classes started back up. I'm hopeful that because of HB 1900, we will see in the budget today that we do have authorization for more cadet classes.
You need to. And I'm going to give you
It would shock me to my core if that wasn't even in there.
Yeah. Here's my, I think maybe me and you have a slightly different reasoning for why we need to do that. And yeah, you're going to see when you defund the police department, when you got a DA like Jose Garza, whenever, like you have the perfect storm together to possibly create a crime wave in Austin, right? You do. And I'm not trying to like fearmonger. I'm not trying to sound like Tucker Carlson or Alex Jones or anybody like that, right? But I'm just saying like logistical factors in play. Like you have the perfect storm of circumstances to create a crime wave in Austin. And we've never really dealt with that before, and people here are not going to be prepared to deal with that, and it could create a lot of problems. And if you have a defunded department while that's happening, they're going to have to replace the police with something, and what they're going to replace the police with if we don't put money back into the department now is going to be a lot worse than what they have going, right? It's like...
It's possible.
No, I mean, I think it's more likely than possible. Like, you... in Maryland, right, in Baltimore, the mayor of Baltimore has been talking with the Biden administration of not hiring, using the funding for police budgeting to not hire more local officers, but to get more ATF officials into Baltimore.
Really?
Yeah, this is I'll send that article to you.
Okay.
And it's from a credible news source. It's from like a Politico or something like that. Like it's on that level, right? And another thing that I'm concerned about is, aside from like possibly being like risking like federalizing like the police departments and stuff like that, or having local departments start abiding by federal standards, which will just hurt everybody. I'm worried that this is going to be used as a way to like create a surveillance state because of all the crime, we need to monitor it. And then all of a sudden now you have these like surveillance cities that are like in London and in all parts of Europe that are being built up everywhere, and that could create a recipe for totalitarianism, considering where we're going. Like, that's my concern.
Well, we could pontificate all day and ponder about what could happen, but what will happen is HB 1900 is going to go into effect. It was signed into law by Greg Abbott, our illustrious governor.
Illustrious.
And it's going to force the city to put the funding back into the department.
And that's good. But I'm just showing you what my perspective is for why I think we got to do it.
Yeah.
Right.
I think we need to do it because, according to the chief's monthly report, murder's up 79% year over year.
Yeah.
Like, aggravated assaults are up 15%. Those are facts.
Yes, it's a fact. And that's why the best way to solve this problem is to hire more officers and put money in the budget now before the solution that we do implement years later will be a lot worse.
Yes.
So we got to do it now. That's kind of where I'm getting at.
Exactly.
I'm like looking into the future, and you're looking into now. But either way.
Because now is it like 2 o'clock
now is it
in
now.
like an hour.
Jesus Christ. No, it's true. So here's another thing I want to actually talk to you about. We got an affordability issue, right? So there's two questions, right? So like they got what's been the deal with rental assistance? How many, like, has there been like a big spike in people asking for rental assistance? How many people are actually asking for it? If you know,
I actually don't know. We haven't looked into that, but I can make sure that we do. And next time I'm with you,
I think you should let me know about that, because this leads me to my next thing, right? And it's that there's been a lot of people have been talking, like this whole pandemic, people have been talking a lot of shit about landlords, right? Like, and you know, people have their reasons, right? And I understand why. I'm not here to like shill for landlords or anything like that. But what I am worried about is the fact that all over like big major cities, you're seeing investment firms, you're seeing places like Blackrock and hedge funds and Open Door and all these companies that are just buying up single family homes in droves. And as bad as some individual landlords are, who even if it's an individual that owns multiple property, it's a lot better to have that than to have a bank be your landlord. So what are you guys doing, if anything, and what can you do, if anything, to not let a bunch of banks and corporations and hedge funds start buying up property left and right in Austin?
I don't know what we could do, but I will tell you that I received a piece of mail, like I could touch it mail, like in the post office here at City Hall, and in it was an article about Blackrock buying up all the real estate. I mean, it's just an interesting time that we live in, that real estate firms like that can come in and just buy things up and then drive the prices higher for everybody else.
Yeah, because they have unlimited Fed money, and there's a whole other rabbit hole we can go down.
Right.
About how that's like Biden's Treasury Department is a bunch of Blackrock.
But the one thing that we don't talk about when we talk about rental assistance and aid is, you know, when there was a moratorium on evictions, that actually hurt landlords.
Yeah, I know.
And I think it's okay to say that they were hurting too, because they still had to pay their mortgage.
Yeah.
Landlords aren't always these rich elitist people.
Agreed. No, I agree with you. Yeah, I agree. And I think that when you are doing what you're doing to landlords, all it does is open up the door for a bank to become the new landlord, and that's
right,
really
because
dangerous.
The landlords can't pay their bills, and then it gets the mortgage. Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's really dangerous. And I was wondering like how we could preemptively take steps to stop that from happening.
We'll look
I don't know
into
if we can do anything, but I think there's something to look into, and I think that a lot of conservatives would be on board with that too, because I think that the conservative movement, especially with COVID, has shifted.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of conservatives now have more in common with like some Bernie Sanders voters in 2016 than they did with like actual conservatives in 2005. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think there's been a shift.
Yeah, I mean, people are definitely more open-minded. They see that there's a lot of bad things happening, that a lot of things that were pushed by certain parties in our government just weren't working well. You know, when you implement something and you don't have a well-thought-out plan, it's problematic. And that's what we've seen with the defunding of the police and the homeless issue over the last 2 years.
I agree. I think it's almost easier, I think, to be a conservative than to be a liberal. When it comes to being from a political standpoint, because when you have like these giant liberal or leftist or progressive ideologies, right? And if you don't implement those perfectly, and if you're not like up all night 24/7 trying to implement those ideas and do it effectively with like real input, the problem gets worse and there's just a huge backlash. Whereas if you're like conservative, you're more just trying to stop these ideas from happening until it's fully thought out through, and it's a lot easier to like, in terms of the backlash, to just say no to something than to push for something that isn't well thought out.
Yeah, well, and
that make
that's
sense?
Yes, I can see where you're coming from. But if you're a good politician, you run traps on everything you do, and you have staff that work with you to poke holes in it so you can fill those holes. So when it is brought forward to be voted on, it's perfect.
Hey,
it's pristine.
before we wrap up, how's your relationship been like with, you've been on this council now for about
6
months, right? Half a year you've been on this council. What's your relationship been like with the other staff members? How are they? Because I know that like, there's a lot of like polarization.
Other council members?
Yeah, other council members. Yeah, like a lot of people, there's so much polarization with the city council, man. Like people are like, especially on Twitter, everybody like either likes you and hates everybody else, or hates you and likes, the Kassars and the POs, or I mean, bad example, like the Kassars and the Natashas or the Vanessa Fuentes, right? But like, what are they really like in person? What's
They're very nice.
They're
most
nice
of them.
for people, right?
Yeah. I enjoy talking with my colleagues quite a bit. There's a lot more that we have in common than we probably don't. And at the very core of it, I believe we all want to make the city a better place. The issue is the roadmap that we all use to get there, and trying to find ways where we can come together on that roadmap so that we make Austin a better place.
Yeah.
And my definition of making Austin a better place is different than probably the mayor's, or probably than Greg Kassar's, and that's okay. Where can we find those pieces of common ground and work together?
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like people think you guys all hate each other, but it's like you guys are all buddies. Like,
they might
you
hate
guys,
me. I don't know.
No, but like you get invited. You're going to the same soccer games as everybody else. Like when you went to the soccer game, you were with other council members at that soccer game, right? Like you've been, you have drinks with Tovo and
not Tovo.
I thought and Kitchen and like
Kitchen and Pool.
Yeah, like you're hanging out and fraternizing and socializing with people that are like on a total different.
At Bridget Shea's announcement.
That's awesome. I had her on my
candidacy.
podcast last week, and
she's so awesome.
She's a very nice lady.
She invited me.
She's a very nice lady who is, in my opinion, very wrong on a lot of things, but she's a really nice lady. She was really nice.
We had a meeting a couple weeks ago to talk about some homelessness related issues, and it was pretty cool to talk to her about her previous experience when she was on the Austin City Council. So she was a council member at one point. Like, I didn't realize this, but we can't put housing for homeless out at the airport because of FAA regulations. And she told me about when they purchased the airport, the property for it, when she was on council, they had to buy all the homes that were around it because of that FAA regulation. So it's just interesting to me. Like, I eat that stuff up.
Yeah. Like, she told me about the water and the purple pipe water going through City Hall, and I was like, that's...
Did you know there's tunnels under City Hall?
I did know about that, yes.
Yeah?
I did
Do you know that there are 68,000 square feet of copper throughout the building?
No.
Our carpets are made of recycled plastic bottles, and there is a giant block of ice a couple blocks from here that pipes in cool air overnight.
That is some fascinating stuff. I think we're gonna end on this. Mackenzie, how do we get a hold of you?
Yeah, you can call my office, look me up on the city's website, or send an email. You can follow me on social media. I have two accounts. One's my personal, and one is my public one.
Do you respond to your Twitter account? Your public Twitter account? Are you the one tweeting, or is someone else tweeting?
Me?
You tweet? Oh, you're the only one doing. All right.
No. I mean, actually, like my official account though. That's me and my staff. So.
Okay.
But I'm my own Twitter.
You're your own Twitter. You really are a pioneer. All right. Hey, Mackenzie Kelly, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much.
Thanks.